Hello everyone, welcome to the 9th episode of What's Up Media. Today we have Professor Shashidhar Nanjundaiah with us, who is going to take our journey of media literacy ahead with his bundle of knowledge and expertise. Professor Nanjundaiah is a nationally reputed educator and media professional, an internationally published media commentator, and an internationally awarded researcher. He is regarded as one of the pioneers in private media and communication education in India for his efforts in revamping curricular approaches and bringing in progressive system of delivery in the 2000s. Professor Nanjundaiah has been the director of Symbiosis Institute of Mass Communication, Pune, founding director of Indira School of Communication, Pune, first dean of India Today Media Institute, Noida, chief story officer at Ensign Global, Bangalore, managing editor of the Indian Express North American Edition, New York. Professor Nanjundaiah's current interests lie in the responsible media literacy, responsible professionalism, a set of good professional practices that he believes every graduate should be equipped with, and responsible storytelling, effective and ethical ways to write persuasively. Welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you, Professor Anamika. Good to be here again. I've been at your university before, so great to be here. And thank you for the kind introduction.
So, sir, we are as we know, we are going to talk about media literacy. And it's a very critical time as an Indian citizen right now because upcoming are the elections in the 6 of the states. So I would take this permission from you to touch that part as well, because coming years, our students are also going to vote. So it might help them because media literacy, if we see it in that perspective, a radicalization is already happening in the media sector. We are all aware of it, but we are not discussing it openly in the academic forum because of several reasons. But what are your views exactly about how should we go ahead with all of this? When we are seeing this, how does a judgment should be working when it comes to reading the messages, decoding them, and taking a particular decision?
First of all, let's distinguish between media education and media literacy. What we would like our media graduates to know, we cannot expect the public at large to know. And therefore, we must, as the problem then is that it's the media educators and the media people with media knowledge that are also disseminating media literacy pedagogy. And so it is very important for us, therefore, to distinguish between the two and to understand what media literacy is and what it can do and what it can't do. Right? You're absolutely right in that. I mean, young generation is going to vote, and much to my surprise, wherever I talk, I realize that it is the youngsters who seem to be more media literate than people my age with, gray hair or white hair. People who are actually advising students, and then students or younger generations will come back with a pushback saying that I don't agree with my own. Could be parents, could be relatives, it's usually extended families, WhatsApp messages on these extended families. I was just reading a message where somebody just left the family WhatsApp group because they were so frustrated that they could not actually convey their position on something. Now, the problem with youngsters is more that they do not see a way out of helping others understand. This is not uniform. I mean, there are many people who are still rather ignorant or do not have the understanding of how media texts work. I have 5 issues with the way that we are delivering media literacy, as well as what we assume is basically media literacy. The first issue with that is our presumption that media literacy is a solution, right?
Okay.
And therefore, what we are doing is we are over-investing ourselves in the concept and the issues of misinformation, right? Actually, there's new research that is suggesting that the power of fake news to expand that echo chamber. We talk about echo chambers, and I'm sure that you would have mentioned this in your lectures as well. That the power of fake news to expand that echo chamber into something larger and build this cocoon of consensus is overrated and even unlikely. Remember that this is very, very new research. And even 10 years ago, this would have not worked. And the reason is media literacy. But did media literacy exist as a pedagogy at that time? Was it being delivered in that formal fashion? No. Then how is it that people have understood this over a period of time? So media literacy is also a very organic process. It happens naturally. I will give you an example of the infamous Lakhimpur Kheri incident, right, where farmers were mowed down by an SUV vehicle late last year,
The
October 1st.
Ashish Mishra case. Yeah.
Ashish Mishra case. See, you recognize it as an Ashish Mishra case. But if you listen to Arnab Goswami on Republic TV, it is about the opposition taking political advantage of it. If you listen to Ravish Kumar, on the other hand, the issue is about Ashish Mishra. Now, where does the truth lie? What is media literacy trying to do here? It is trying to establish the truth. But where is the truth? Is Arnab lying or is Ravish Kumar lying? Of course not. But it's very, very unlikely that somebody who's talking to the nation like that will lie in your face. Very few people do it very effectively, but not these guys. Let's decode that. You can't, deconstruct the incident. You can only deconstruct what the media has told us, because unless you were there on the spot, right? Now, why is Republic TV visibilizing some part of the truth and not what Ravish Kumar is visibilizing, and vice versa, right? That is what it boils down to. Does media literacy actually help here? My question is even deeper. Does it matter to the normal consumer? It might matter to you because you are a media person. It might matter to our students who are media students. But does it actually matter to the person on the street? What matters to us as the truth? Does it matter to the common person, or does narrative matter more? That is, am I trying to watch a show in order to confirm my own beliefs? And therefore, it's not confirming as much as a solidarity with the belief. I want to be able to tell my friends and my extended family on WhatsApp, right, that this is the actual truth. Although none of these anchors are actually saying that is the only truth. I mean, Arnab does it, but he does it in his dramatic style. He understands that that's only part of the truth.
The company agendas.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly true. That is why what is media literacy then assuming here? Media literacy seems to be assuming that there is misinformation somewhere. No, that's not true. That's why I believe that the first premise that I have an issue with is the assumption that media literacy assumes this about truth, that there is lots of misinformation. Misinformation is at the root of all problems. Actually, it's not, right? So that is one example. The second issue that I have is that the public is somehow media illiterate. Look, what is media literacy trying to solve? What is literacy trying to solve? Illiteracy. So what is media illiteracy trying to solve? Illiteracy. But is it as simple as that? That, should media literacy evolve by taking into consideration that media illiteracy is not the problem anymore? Because 10 years ago, what people did not know, today people know. We agreed on that, right? So if this entire pattern fits into our notion of media illiteracy, like people are generally illiterate. I'm literate, so I'm going to tell them what the truth is. That is a wrong presumption a lot of the times. Not all the time, but most of the times these days. Because like I said, it is not about creating my own belief, but solidarity with my belief. That is why youngsters are getting frustrated with WhatsApp groups, because they seem to want to change attitudes. And that's not happening. That's not happening because this belief, the existence of belief in truth, and that is my third issue with it. Beyond belief, there is solidarity with belief. And that is what is at the root of what media literacy needs to try and get at. The fourth one is that media literacy, well, just as media are governed by technological, ideological, socio-political, nationalistic structures. I mean, even NDTV India's slogan is, what is that? Zubaan pe sach,
Zubaan pe dil mein India.
Dil mein India. Why India? Think about that. This is nationalism, right? This is nationalism. And they want to show that we are nationalistic. It's not just Arnab Goswami who's nationalistic. We are also very patriotic and nationalistic. Why India? So why not some other country? Why not the globe? Why not the world? Why not the planet? Because we are Indians, because all that we have been hegemonized into thinking all this, and we are not getting out of it ourselves.
So they are making it a fact. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is what media literacy needs to also decode in the minds of people, that whatever we are seeing is an India perspective, right? So, you know, when a message is not available to us, how do I analyze it?
Exactly.
Media literacy is about analyzing available texts, media texts. What is it that I cannot analyze? Do you tell your in your media literacy classes, please also look at the portal of Dawn from Pakistan? No India, I mean, like, it's a very dangerous time today to even say that, right? So when we think about these things, much less, you know, some other country like the Straits Times or whatever, I mean, nobody even thinks of narratives outside of our own structures. That is the problem. And the fifth problem is media literacy really striking the right balance between responsibility and agency? That is, agency means the power to, the empowerment of rights to express. Is media literacy really doing that? Media literacy seems over-invested in the responsibility part, saying that you must be responsible. You are responsible. Basically, the problem is you. That's what we are telling people in media literacy.
Exactly. So you said one thing, that young kids are actually falling off, like they are losing the interest in the WhatsApp groups or such kind of information bombardment that is happening on them. But
I did not say that as a rule, like it's not,
yeah,
I don't think it's still a norm, but yeah,
it
there
is
are
true. Actually,
yeah.
It is true also. They are falling off, many of them. But this is general, like my personal opinion on this. What I have been observing in my kids, like specifically who are enrolled into the journalism and broadcast. So many a times I see them circulating like some of the what you can say messages that they get on the WhatsApp groups. So there's a certain kind of radicalization happening in their minds as well. So there is no classes of media literacy which will give them a direction. So as you said, it hasn't been institutionalized as of yet in the universities. So what used to happen in your times or our times was that we would associate this media literacy with the knowledge of the politics or the economics or the class 8th grade or 10th grade things that we have heard. But what are the journalism institute? So what are the things that the journalism institute should inculcate in them?
Great question. I think first, so basically what you're asking me is, what is the solution? Like, what should media literacy be doing per se exactly. through its institutionalized mechanisms that exist already? And that's a great question. That I think is already happening in the United States, where some of the states, well, the federal law was not passed. I mean, it could not be passed. It just seems to have died a natural death. But the states in the United States, which are very empowered, it's all like India, the United States is also a federal structure kind of nation. Illinois, where I currently live, passed a law last year, and all public high schools from this year will start learning media literacy. High schools, right? They're not media students. but they're high school. So what they learn is, like I said, they're at least recognizing the need for both responsibility and rights, in the sense that how to responsibly consume. And when we say consume, see, look, I'm a news literacy person, but news is not the only thing, right? Today you can't really distinguish between information, opinions,
Exactly.
entertainment, nothing. Like, they're all, one influencer will give you everything. So when a high school goer or a college goer is watching something on Instagram, and immediately there is this urge to buy that thing, have they understood what goes on behind it, what narratives are being spun, etc.? I mean, do I understand all uh, aspects of it? What we need to actually do is to help students, not just media students, to help students develop tools of what I call prosumerism. So the media prosumerism is essentially, I mean, it's a much deeper subject, but I'm just going to simplify it by saying that we are all both consumers and producers today, aren't we? Like, of media
Exactly.
messages. And prosumerism is something that I'm actually working on. But as prosumers, it's somehow assumed that we consume alag se, and we produce alag se. So prosumerism has not actually collided the two functions that are embedded in one person. I'm doing both. My head is constantly churning both production and consumption at the same time. By empowering me simply with the tools of production, I become a mock influencer. You are already doing this in your university. I know that students actually produce media texts,
Exactly.
and they also kind of you might ask them to now try to make it viral, or try to market it online. And then they will realize what it actually takes. So once they realize what it is taking in, they have their own ethical codes, they have their own codes of production. Once they realize that I have reached the end of that boundary of ethics, for example, now I need to cross it in order to get anything commercially, like in a Machiavellian way, be able to achieve something in the market. Then they start realizing the effects of what actually goes on as a consumer for myself. That is one way to do it. Another way is simply the workshop method, which a lot of people are doing. I know that I myself have done it. The workshop method is essentially where you decode available media texts, but also give them the other perspective. Now, Joe Biden, the US president, recently said very famously, I think, that in some context, I want to know how many people are watching both Fox and MSNBC. Fox and MSNBC, respectively, are like Republic TV and NDTV. Not even NDTV. Like, if the Wire had a TV channel, that's what it would be. It's extreme. Like, it's not. Wire is not extreme. I'm saying they're at opposite ends of the spectrum. Think about that. Like, how many people, now your media students, they're media students. That's why they watch the entire spectrum, because you make them watch. But how many people actually watch opposing channels just to understand? And if they do, that's great, they're media literate. But if they're media illiterate, it doesn't mean that you can change their mind. That's a very dystopian kind of a view. But what is needed is intervention at the high school level, or middle school level, high school level. There, what happens, because this is where I keep hearing, when I take those workshops, saying, sir, my folks don't listen to me. I already know what you're telling me, kind of thing. They don't tell me that, because that they would think is rude. But basically, that's what they're telling me, that I understand what you're saying, but the elders don't understand this. But then what happens? So this is a third thing. Make students ambassadors of media literacy. That means that it is not as if they are trying to change the world, make them more literate, because the presumption itself is wrong, that the world is media illiterate. You cannot change it. What you can do is put forth another side of the debate that they will not know otherwise. Because if they're watching Republic, they will not know what Ravish Kumar is saying. If they're watching NDTV, they will not know what Arnab is saying. It's very unlikely that we will, integrate such opposing forces in one mind. So the student, however, is in the middle. Their parents, their circles, and just by having these debates, I think you're putting forth a kind of a nudge in the minds of everybody. It might not work today. It is not a revolution at all. Media literacy cannot be a revolution. It is only an evolution, and it can only evolve.
It's actually like a good this thing that it can only be evolved. It cannot be like a revolution overnight thing, because it took a lot of years to just come to this position that the complications have happened.
Isn't it? Because see, we are looking at media literacy as this quick fix solution to a quick fix problem, quick problem. Exactly. Suddenly we find media misinformation everywhere. Prime ministers and presidents are lying to us. How do I solve this? Media literacy. No, it's not an immediate solution to some immediate problem. It cannot work that way.
So, sir, my next question to you would be about the ethical calls, because when we are talking about some educator has to educate about the media literacy, then what are the ethics that the media educator should follow? Because as we know, just like the content creators, the educators also have their own concerns. So that might come into the way that how things are delivered. So not just the media in which they are consuming, but also the educator is also becoming a media to know about the media. So what are your opinions on that?
Great. Look, I think the media educator is conflicted today because, and you and I offline were also talking about how, public and private universities have their own focus points and stuff. So the media educator is in the best position to understand different codes of ethics. The commercial codes that the media might follow, but at the same time, not as much as an Immanuel Kant kind of code where it's very prescriptive, or it's there is the objective truth. Not that level of ethics. We have to understand that there is subjectivity involved, both in the truth as well as the delivery of messages. That just simply getting that into a codified kind of ethics is a great endeavor. I think also on your point, you just made me think about it. I think media literacy itself should evolve a code of ethics of its own, where it is neither too prescriptive nor too laissez-faire, not something that is just saying that whatever the market demands, we're going to do it. So we can't do that. That is in fact a very critical role that media literacy needs to play. Like a lot of pedagogic subjects are falling prey to the fact that they're supposed to be critical, but they can't critique themselves. Like they think they're better than the others. So media literacy is falling into that same trap. So media literacy also needs to critique itself constantly as it goes forward.
So there shouldn't be any defined rule book for it, because it will change with time and situations.
And that is absolutely true too. So the other thing about an ethical code for media literacy would be to keep it dynamic. What happens with codes of ethics is they don't change. For example, newspapers, they haven't changed their codes of ethics forever, and we are still following something called objective. Like, objectivity is out the window right now. Let's not even think about objectivity as a topic to discuss anymore, because commercial imperatives and other imperatives have forced the media to promote subjectivity. So why are we even talking about objective as that endeavor? I mean, it's the same thing with advertising and public relations. We need to understand that advertising and public relations are not, in lots of cases on the online platforms, they are not even different. They're converging. In fact, information and entertainment are converging. So why are we even talking about that? So the code of ethics actually for media literacy would need to revolve around that. I don't have immediate thoughts about it, but I think it can be evolved. It can evolve with the understanding of how the media codes of ethics have evolved or not.
Exactly. Sir, I have two more questions. We are running short on time, but I would quickly want to ask you. There's like after the oncoming of the OTT platforms, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all those things. Do you consider that some amount of this media literacy, like education, should be inculcated how we are perceiving the content, like the non-fiction content? I'm so sorry, fiction content, because in recent times, like in past 4 years, we have seen a lot of films which are totally dedicated to the same tagline we discussed about NDTV, around nationalism, around older, what you can say, things, controversies, and all those things. So there are like bombardment of content on those lines, and this is a recent trend. Some of it is actually very good, and some of it is having some question marks. So how do you see it? Certain amount of like literacy is needed there also. Do you think so?
You are embarking upon a completely different project now. Yeah, because this is about free speech versus fair speech. Okay. Now, when it comes to fiction, now I was watching on an OTT platform sometime late last year, where it demonized a Muslim man who's a cop and glorified a Hindu man who's also a cop, his colleague. And for me, that is not nationalism. That is fueling hatred. And while it is only piggybacking on what's already going on in reality in our country, it is. I don't think it's a great idea to censor those voices, because if we are on the one hand saying that free speech should apply to people of like who are dissenting voices, why shouldn't free speech apply to majoritarian voices? There's nothing wrong with that, especially on OTT platforms and such, where there are gatekeepers and there are systems in place, there are structures in place. It's not that they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
At the same time, therefore, if you look at the outcomes of those nationalistic narratives, maybe they're funded to do that or whatever, I don't know. What are the outcomes? How many of them have been this huge mega hits?
Hardly any.
Why? So let's think about that. So they're making these products that are not actually selling, right? I mean, even if the narrative overall in the nation seems to be a very majoritarian kind of narrative,
but it's not reflecting there.
That's right. So that should tell us as media literacy people, it should tell us something about what's actually going on, right?
Exactly. So my last question to you, can we discuss about the scope of media literacy for our students who are like looking forward to get into the industry? So as we discussed, this is not a, what you can say, organized sector or a dedicated job line. But what if like there are many portals which are doing fact checking. There are many portals which are dedicating themselves into research about the content. So is there any scope in those sector or any independent scope that you are thinking about?
Absolutely. No, that's a very practical question. And I think some people are doing excellent work in fact checking, forensics, and also developing independent content around, say, statistics. Now, statistics, they say don't lie, but actually statistics lie. Numbers don't lie. But if you invisibilize the numbers, if you hide the numbers, nothing's going to come out. So some of these independent endeavors, extremely good. So you'll see this trend now, right, where mainstream journalists have dropped off the bandwagon and started their own independent portals, mostly portals. And there are quite a few of those. And they are doing excellent work in doing this. They're also doing a lot of media literacy training, the same people. I know my friend Govindraj Etiraj runs Boom Live, for example. He's doing that. And another friend, Syed Nazakat, he's involved in both training as well as his portal, does these data journalism kind of things. Now, they have their limitations. But when students want to join these organizations, it's a great idea for those people to be on your campuses, telling them first of all what these things are. For example, what is the forensic tool for fact checking? How do you operate that tool? Can some of your interested students intern there? There are mechanisms by which fact checking. So we are getting, media literacy kind of almost blindly tells people, do your own fact checking. That's a little ambitious, right? So
Yeah.
how do you disseminate effectively a fact checked story? The other thing is there's a lot of frivolous fact checking going on. I know some of the channels who will say, oh, our research desk is also a fact check desk, and we are going to tell you one story that's, and they'll give you something about Turkmenistan. Somebody said something, somebody showed something which is actually not true. How does it impact me? How does that fact impact me? What fact have you actually checked? What are the structures? Who's twisting your arm? Because of which you can't, because the mainstream media is unable to do fact checks of facts that really matter, of stories that really matter. So when students, we have to be also careful, Professor Anamika, because when we in setting goals for our students and getting them to be idealistic and motivated in the right direction kind of goal. While doing that, we have to be also careful about how the real world actually works, because the mainstream media doesn't work like how maybe a Boom Live will work, or an alt news will work. So they have, and there are certain portals that may also be alleged to be affiliated to one side, not funded, but affiliated, because they see their role as critical of the dominant narrative. Critical of the dominant narrative. That's the running theme that you'll find, and your students will find that, and they need to prepare themselves for that. So when we say media is not like some monolith. There are media is a combination of media organizations, and your students need to know that.
Yeah, the critic of the dominant narrative is something which caught my attention. I have a lot of questions related to it, but I would like to end it here. But sir, in the end, I want to ask you if you would like to tell our students about your upcoming projects or what you're working on right now. Give us some light on it.
I'm working on media literacy, but as you can see, I'm a critic of media literacy as it is being practiced today. We need a reinvention of media literacy, not reinvention, that's going too far. We need a revisit and a revision of media literacy. Recently, I was invited, and I'm now on the board of what is the oldest media literacy organization in the US. It used to be called National Telemedia Council. Now it's called International Council for Media Literacy, which is why I'm there, because it's international and they want it to be, they want voices from everywhere. And we were discussing in my first board meeting how we need to understand those 5 points that I was telling you about.
Yes.
Those 5 points actually form part of my project, which is what I'm researching right now. And in that project, I talk much about, so when you dig deeper, you are a researcher, you know this. You serendipitously find stuff that you didn't think you would find.
Yeah.
And one of those things for me has been, how do the media, and then I always use media in the plural, please excuse me for that, nobody in India does it. How do the media contribute, that is facilitate or hamper media literacy? Like, so what are they doing? They are selectively visibilizing some things, right, for us. And when, say, for example, independent videos suddenly surface, think about Lakhimpur Kheri, right? We didn't know what happened until independent videos started surfacing. Can we so then what happens to media narratives? Media narratives are then depending on those independent videos. And then there's chaos because nobody knows which one to believe and which one is doctored and which one is not doctored. There's a whole situation there. And it can be easily manipulated. So my project right now, I'm revolving my thoughts around those issues of around media literacy and whether media literacy can solve all these problems, first of all. And second of all, my project is about hatred, making hatred, like, they talk about making love. So how do you make hate, right? Making hate is clearly easier than we thought. And one linkage of that with media literacy is, why is media literacy not taking that up? Why only misinformation? Why not hatred? Are you saying that misinformation is behind hatred? No, we just talked about it. It's not, right? Misinformation is not the problem here. Misinformation, like, rolling pin, if you make it stand, corona will go away. That is clearly misinformation. But that is like, we have always had misinformation. We've always had superstitions. People still go ahead with their beliefs. We can't help that. And yet we never saw this level of hatred surfacing. Why? Everywhere, not just in India, everywhere. My project tries to explore the manufacture of hate from this media perspective, like how media narratives either try to stop that or stall that, or maybe fueling it because of their inherent processes.
Thank you so much, sir. This was like a really, really great and informative session. And we look forward for many more sessions because it is not at all possible to cover each and every aspect of it. But yeah, I'm happy that we covered a lot many angles today. And we look forward for more sessions like this with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Professor Anamika, for having me. And my thanks to Professor Geetali and everybody else involved as well. It was great talking to you and great questions.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.